Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another recap review show here, Big Old Belt Media, where Nadia and I are ready to jump into episode 6 of FS's Shogun, which in this episode is titled Lady of the Willow World. As we always like to do here, we start off with our review, our thoughts about the episode, and then we get into it. I started last week, Nadia, so I'll give it to you. What was your thoughts about episode 6?
So it's like a lot happened, but in very like condensed moments. It was kind of like a lot more plotting. It wasn't a lot of action in this episode. It was definitely a lot more build up, a lot of like I said, like planning. We see a lot more of the betrayal. We also see a bit more of Lady Ochiba, her past. We'll get into that in a bit, but I do like that we're starting to see more context like to each of the characters. I think that I kind of like how the show's been doing it, like each episode, not necessarily like a focus on a character, but they'll give like a little bit of their history, which kind of helps like with the progression of the story. So I thought it was overall a good episode. I think this one might have been the most confusing in a sense. I think I really want to rewatch this one again, but I still think it's an absolutely incredible show, and I've enjoyed every single episode.
Yeah. Solid episode for me too. Definitely as an episode 6, I sort of expected it to really drive the plot, lack on the action, really push the character dynamics and character arcs forward, especially with characters we hadn't got too much from. And I don't think it was at all a bad decision to really go back into the past of Lady Ochiba and then young Mariko and seeing that relationship that I'm not gonna say, I don't know, I gotta think about this before. I guess, well, how they showed it and how they displayed it definitely is almost a tale of two stories, a tale of two fates. And knowing that it had a relationship, knowing that it had not yet been discussed, and kind of seeing how essentially we saw two sisters separated and really haven't had a chance to really reflect about what that did for one another. Because I think, as you can see, and maybe you can speak to it a little bit too, that bond they had as a kid, it's like one of those type of things where it's like you knew they were special to one another, and they cared for one another. In the world, in the war around them, tore them apart. They never had a chance to seem like they seemed like they never had a chance to really rekindle. And to me, it really poses a lot of questions in terms of what is that interaction is going to look like once they get back to one another. And at the end of this episode, I think it was very telling that we seen Lady Mariko's face when Toranaga says, "Listen, Crimson Sky, everybody's getting got." And her face didn't look like, "Yeah, let's do it." It kind of looked in the sense of concern, which made me think, could she be fearful of, is there any reservations, or is there any bit of concerns about what that could do to one she may care about, such as Ochiba? So I don't know. It's interesting. I think it left a lot more questions than answered. So definitely we'll talk about it and get into everything and kind of express some of our predictions here. But I'm definitely pleased about the storytelling in this one, because it definitely got me suited and booted and ready for episode 7. So yeah, let's start off at the top of the episode, because we do go back 22 years ago, as they say, when we look at young Mariko at the Azuki Castle. So she is the daughter of Jinsai, so we know about that. And as kids, and I'm going to say as they, because we definitely going to reference Ochiba. And at this point now, we don't quite know who it is, but I had my suspicion at this point that it was Lady Ochiba, and Lady Ochiba going by at the time then as Ruri. So, as kids, these two young ladies, they witness so much, like beheadings and this is not even to the point of them losing family just yet, but like, I mean, they're exposed to so much at such a young age. You kind of understand and see why everything that we say about Mariko here you can also kind of say the same about Ochiba in terms of them being numb. But then even still, you see Mariko being trained and growing and pretty much, just I think being put on display to the folks, even her husband at the time, really seeing her potential, seeing her worth, seeing her value. And this even gets to the point where we may actually be witnessing the first time that Bontoro saw and seeked her and realized that potentially he wanted to marry her, even though her father gave her off to him. But it still seems to be the time where he kind of laid eyes on her and kind of realized, like, yeah. But yeah, this is a lot of reflecting back of her past. What was your thoughts about them opening the episode with that reflection and really getting a glimpse into everything that she really endured? Well, more, because she's told stories. We've seen little segments of it, but this was some dedicated time and really fleshed it all out in terms of everything she'd been through.
Yeah, I feel like this episode, John kind of took a backseat. He wasn't, something happens with him, but he wasn't a major arc in this episode at all. I do really like that the focus shifted to the woman, because even though this was like 22 years ago, like these moments basically shaped who they are now. Like we basically see with Lady Ochiba, like she was a completely different person. Like even Mariko like references it later on. She's like, I don't know who Lady Ochiba is. Like completely different. And we even see like Mariko kind of transition, I guess, like after seeing like so much death and then like the betrayal and basically like being taken away from like her home and essentially like I guess her friend at the time, and then being stuck in an arranged marriage. You kind of just see how she felt more like a tool instead of like, you know, being honored or something. It was just more of like a, I have to marry that guy, and she seemed super depressed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so much I think we could really talk about this, because yeah, like on one end we see her father, basically sending her off for marriage, and that's kind of looks like, oh damn. And then the other end you could be like, well, just a second ago we can see how valued she was. I mean, when she performed, everybody was like, well, she's skilled, and obviously we see everything that she is to become and her duties, her worth, and so on. And even with everything that happens, we see that Ruri and Mariko, when everything goes down, those two came together. So the fact that this marriage separated that bond and friendship, and it definitely wasn't something either one of them was remotely happy about. But what could they do? And I think they really start to get the concept of how women just aren't valued. We're just elements in the war,
Was it also that scene where they showed Lady Ochiba getting drugged? Basically,
No, not
was,
yet.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And that's what's like, I mean, she talks about it, but I mean, like, the two of them, they really had like this horrendous childhoods, one way or another. But going to Toranaga, so Toranaga is in front of everybody. They're talking about the laws. We also see my man Blackthorn get another promotion here. Essentially, he's the chief admiral and general of the Cannon Regiment, and also given swords. Yeah, the moment I saw this, first of all, I thought this scene was shot really tight. But the moment I saw this, I was like, oh, there is going to be some problems. If it ain't Omi or Nagakoto, somebody's not going to be happy about
haters.
this. And yeah, it's just, and I got to be honest, I keep it 100. You have to respect Toranaga for his lineage and everything everyone said he is. But I got to tell you, like, one moment you're like, well, Omi's going to be, in charge of this. And then it's like, well, then he's going to be in charge of this. He done saved me plenty of times, or he saved me, this time when everything went down. So to me, it's just kind of like, I hope he knows what he's doing, and hopefully that doesn't cause a little bit of friction with them. But I think we always got to keep in the forefront just how important the loyalty to everybody that is behind it. Everybody is extremely loyal. I think there's only maybe one person that we can kind of question that a little bit with, and that's Yabushigi. But everybody else is like right on track with it. So it's like, even though these moves can sound a little problematic, it may not actually be. But that's no here nor there. Everybody's back to rebuilding everything. There's thousands dead. And with the loss, the major casualties of this, they know they can't face Ashido like this. So Omi and Yabushigi are wondering what's next. So everybody's really back at the rebuilding stage because what can they do? And Blackthorn, we see Blackthorn and Mariko because Blackthorn hears Mariko praying. He prays, she prays, or he prays. I think at this rate now, everybody should be very aware that he just really picks his moments to really try to get close to her.
Yep.
This is
people are noticing.
Yeah, people are noticing. What's the saying? What you do in the shadows eventually comes to light. So there's that. So Toranaga, he has a conversation with Bontoro where Bontoro is pleading for forgiveness for the issues he had with Blackthorn, explaining explaining, and that, man, it's crazy to think that I could be sympathetic for Bontoro here. Actually, I don't think I actually have a problem with him. I know the past and what they detail his relationship with Mariko, and we obviously know she's also expressed it. We haven't really seen that abusive nature on screen. It's been implied in the one episode because you can kind of hear it. Well, no, we've seen her be abused. Yeah. But I can't remember. Did they actually show him hit? Either way, we know she's been abused. And beyond what we just saw, we know that there's been a very essential history of the different things he used to do to her in this arranged marriage. And it's just weird for me to feel a little bit of sympathetic for him here because I think he is, I don't know. This is like a difficult conversation to navigate. I don't think he's a good person. I think he's a good soldier. And I think his plea to Toranaga from everything that's happening with him is him basically asking for death because he knows he's wrong. He's out of line, but he's also trying to acknowledge and admit why he acts the way he does. Doesn't make it excusable, but it's just definitely like one of those, it's one of those strange makes of this episode that I just wasn't able to really wrap my head around. Like, he admits that he's causing troubles within the Arjun's house or the Blackthorn's house. He then goes about says like, hey, my wife doesn't light up the way she lights up when she's with him. So I understand why they're together and I understand why it happens. And sort of this is one of those type of things where he kind of like, I know I'm wrong. I know I've been a shitty person. And it seems like it makes sense for them to be together. And I think this is a lot of what you're saying where like everything is really coming to light. I give it to you. What did you make of Bontoro going to talk to Toranaga about his relationship with Mariko and almost him acknowledging that Blackthorn is the better person for her?
I don't know. I saw it more as like he's jealous. He's trying to make excuses. He was basically like their entire marriage. She was icy. He kind of described it as like I guess she was always cold towards him, but at the same time, like she didn't want to marry you. So it's kind of like
sure.
If he's being like an asshole on top of it and abusive, that's not gonna help your case. It's not gonna help her like you. And then he's ordered to isolate her from her for 7 days.
7 days, yeah.
So I'm wondering if he's gonna take that out on Blackthorn or if he's gonna kind of like, I don't know, keep himself now, cool out, accept the fate. Like, curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess the viewers, you all can kind of assess what did you think of the Bontoro and Toranaga conversation here. Yeah, I think without a doubt, shitty person, treated her bad, abusive, and I think that Toranaga, and I mean that's the other interesting thing, how Toranaga is kind of like navigating through this. He's kind of like, first of all, nothing can come between her and Blackthorn because I need that. That has to happen. So Bontoro, you will have to be isolated for 7 days to get your act together. No, you won't have death, but and the reason, it's not that I don't think death was an option here, but isn't death almost always an option anytime there's a measure of defiance here? So like the fact that Bontoro came pleading for forgiveness is probably like, to me, a cop of saying like, I'm sure you're aware of everything that's happening.
I was gonna say though, in reference to the last episode right before the earthquake, Toranaga did mention something about like not even basically like caring about Mariko. It was more so like, I need my translator. It
Yeah,
wasn't even
yeah.
like protect this woman. It was like, I need my translator. So
That's
because of her position, that's the only reason like Toranaga necessarily cares. So it's interesting too, because like I'm seeing a light of Toranaga. Like I don't necessarily like him, even though he's like a main protagonist. You're starting to kind of see. I don't know. It could just be like a customs kind of thing, like, but also like this kind of personality of his. I'm starting to be like, oh, I don't know if I like Toranaga.
yeah. I agree. I mean, because I to kind of jump a little bit forward here, when he told the story to Mariko about her father and what her father did, he said it as if it was almost like empowering to her. But I looked at it, I was just like, I don't think that's actually what that's being said there. Like, you made it seem like your father shipped you away to protect you. Sounds like a noble thing for you to come back and
Take revenge.
for my wrestling fans, finish the story. Uh, but instead, she's like, well, I failed him. And she's like, no, you didn't. The war isn't over. So are you using that story that could not be true in order to equip her for her to be ready and to be aligned and to absolutely continue her loyalty going forward? Could you start to see the things that could make her question the loyalty with Blackthorn? You know, is love going to come into play?
He also played it off like I thought you knew.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of like,
yeah, those are kind of like, is this manipulation or what? But they're sort of there. You all can let us know what you think about that. All I know is that Bontoro in isolation for 7 days. Toranaga going to do what he has to do to lead and doesn't care who and what that causes for anybody's personal feelings. So we go to Osaka, where it is a fire because Ashido has taken over and basically all the regents are held hostage here. So everyone's locked in the castle, which is going to force a vote here. And we see Sizu say, we must leave, we must warn Toranaga, but he is not, his escape isn't without mild injury. And we now see Father Alvito and Father Del Aqua, and they're talking about with knows that this is Lady Ochiba. Like everybody knows that she's the one pulling the strings, and because this is not, if this isn't the biggest game of flip flop, now they're like, well, before it's too late, we must turn to Toranaga as an ally. So there's that. And as you mentioned, I'll give this scene to you where we get to see flashbacks to Lady Ochiba and everything that was happening with her, because we have this moment with her, messing with her son hair, but then it goes into something much more deeper. So tell me about this. When the scene when she started to reflect back, zone out, and I mean, this is completely traumatizing here. And I will just quickly say that we know how much she loves her son. We know how important and how much of a focal point her son is. For her to sort of zone out in spending this time with her son, to kind of go back into this trance of all the horrific things that's happened to her. What did you make of the scene, and kind of explain through it?
Just one thing real quick. I feel like this episode could have done like transitioning a little better between the moments, like going back in time, because that one scene where I'm not sure his name, but one of the guys runs off after the fires.
Yeah, Sizu.
Sizu.
Yeah.
At one point I wasn't sure if that was back then or if that was now. And then it jumped like back to Lady Ruri and her past. And then I guess it kind of like showed us how she became Lady Ochiba. And this was kind of like sad and dark, because similar to like Mariko's story, like you kind of saw like as they were kids, like she was happy, like she had her friend in her place. And they had like their training sessions together, which was pretty cool that we got to see that too, that the women also were training and fighting.
Yeah.
But then you see when she gets basically like, I think they called it like a vassal. It wasn't a vessel, it was like a vassal. So I'm not sure what the term means. I don't know if they necessarily meant like a vessel, like she's basically just to get pregnant to give him an heir. That's kind of how I took it. And you kind of see like a whole shift of her character. Like basically like a depression, and we see how they, I forgot what she said exactly, but it was something about like what she went through, and to produce like an heir, and like they showed like I don't know if it was like some kind of plant or something, like basically I guess like drugging her and testing her like to do this, and then have to have like interactions with the like a nasty older man is kind of like so I don't know, I'm guessing not to like excuse like what she may become, because I kind of feel like a villain arc coming from her, but that could also play into like her whole character arc, basically why I think she wants to take control. And even being a female, she's kind of like trying to run shit like behind the scenes now and play chess, because even Lord Ito, was it one of them wanted to like instead of forcing the vote against Toranaga, one of them was like, we should be the priest is also questioning aligning with Toranaga. So similar to like Game of Thrones fashion, I feel like there's going to be a lot of like backstabbing and like alliances we didn't expect.
Yep. Which makes it so interesting, because everything we thought isn't, you thought folks would go one way, isn't now, but I mean, because I'd be wanting to say like, I did not trust the priest for a while, and the fact that like now the priest is like, oh, maybe, and that doesn't quite make these people good people, but it just means that like this is truly a game of who is on whose side. It is absolutely going to be Ashido versus Toranaga, and we got Lady Ochiba sort of playing puppet master to Ashido, and then Toranaga is who everybody fears, who everybody is deeming to have the most power, but obviously could do but so much without everybody coming for his head one way or another. So, and then there's the heir to the throne that's just there, which makes Ochiba one of the most valued people, because any threat to him is a threat to the land. And then that instantly makes anybody on the opposite side, which we see.
The irony is that I feel like Toranaga is the only one that actually cares about the boy. The rest just want power. I feel like Toranaga actually wants to protect him. So the irony is that he's kind of on the opposing side, but he's the only one that technically cares.
Yeah, 1,000%. So what do we got now? Oh, so we got the Cheeto and Oshiba, and they're talking about with Lord Ito, and this is where we start the conversation about why the hate for Toranaga, which lady what Oshido's asking Ochiba, but she answers that later. We'll talk about it in a little bit. So the messenger now gets there to Toranaga and gives the whole scoop about everything here. Oshido rules all of Osaka, and understanding that allies are trying to be turned. This is where we get the first, which I'm very surprised that this isn't the title of the episode, but this is the first mention of Crimson Sky, which the Crimson Sky is this plan, a single violent rush to the Osaka castle to eliminate the council and form a new government, leaving just one sole regent, which is Toranaga, which is the Shogun. So it's an idea that Toranaga definitely was not. It was a plan formed for him, but a plan that he doesn't want to exercise at this time because he doesn't want to be the Shogun. So, what did you think about, first of all, hearing about everything that's happening in Osaka? One, I can't believe the guy made it there. And did I miss anything? Maybe no. Did I? Oh, yeah.
We could go back to Blackthorn in a bit.
Yeah. That's why I was like, wait, did I miss something? But yeah. What did you think about basically the plan? Everybody sort of coming together, trying to figure out the plan. Omi given space to allow a proposition of how he thinks it should be executed. Hiromatsu plan in terms of just, well, Hiromatsu was explaining what the Crimson Sky plan was, talking about Toranaga's half brother, Nabu Tusu, I believe how you say it. I don't know, I get it right. And also talking about how that could be somebody that they can get on his alliance there. But this ultimately Toranaga is, not wanting to take the Shogun title, but also doesn't want a plan that's going to be guaranteed death. But yeah, what did you make of this whole conversation with everybody really trying to get the understanding of what they're up against?
I think they're starting to realize how serious this is. It's not just them trying to like impeach and assassinate Toranaga, but basically this is kind of like, I guess, going to affect all of their territories. Like it's much bigger than they think. And then the Crimson Sky, it just sounds like a huge, like immaculate, like plan that's probably like contingency plan. Like it's probably something they didn't necessarily like predict like happening. But I think they're starting to realize like how serious everything is. And the injured messenger mentioned that allies are being turned to enemies. So I think he's starting to also lose faith. Like people are starting to lose faith, and he's starting to lose sides because they're basically being pulled into Ashido's, I guess, I don't know, not regimen, but like he's basically probably persuading them that they're betrayers if they follow Toranaga. So they kind of maybe feel like they have no choice. But that's why I think things are starting to like get pretty serious. He's like, oh, all right, I gotta step up.
Yeah. The only thing I did forget is that the performance that happened in Osaka, where everybody is there realizing that they're actually prisoners of just not Oshido, but also of Ochiba. And also too, I think that this performance here was almost a light way to really explain what had happened with the Taikon and how Ochiba was the one that, how she got her name from the
older lady.
Yeah, his wife. And because she was unable to give a heir to the throne, this is why she was brought in to do so. And I think, there's a couple of things I can actually think of this. Like, I think that play, I don't know if it was done in good taste or was it mind games, because her having to relive everything she's been through. I mean, that's traumatizing. And if this is supposed to be a celebration, because that's what most of these things typically are. When you got these reenactment, these plays, whatever it is, it's kind of like, oh, we're honoring you for what you've done. And it's an interesting development. Like, I'm trying to be super sensitive about everything we're talking about here, but like, this is horrendous. But at the end of the episode, she's kind of like, do you know why I'm the person that's this? Because I'm the only one that can do this. And like, that's kind of her, like, kind of saying like, although all this shit was bad, like, I'm the only person that could have gave him a son. So she's kind of like embracing it in a more of a liberating way, and that's a really, really, really interesting path that this character is taking. I think it's just more and more so how we're like learning about just the society at this time here, because yeah, I don't know, that's it seems, I don't know, it's woo. It's kind of like it's kind of hurtful thinking that she did all of this to give her a son, and like she endured a lot.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that she's getting more of an arc, because from the first episode, I only thought she was his mother. I thought that was the last time we were going to see her, that it was going to be the focus on the son, the heir. She was just like a vessel. But it's interesting to see how like her character is going to come into play and actually like make moves. So I like that she's getting like her own story.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to Lady Kiko, Mariko, and Fuji. And this is now a whole idea, because with everything, Blackthorn has to receive presents. The long short of this is Mariko has a price, Lady Kiko has a price. They're not so close to each other's respected offers here. But Lady Kiko is understanding that the value of her services is worth top dollar. She thinks it's about Toranaga, but it actually is about Blackthorn. She's a little hesitant about it, but understanding that this is by order of Toranaga, that gets everybody back in line. But there is a lot of, I don't know, lack of better terminology here. There's a lot of finger pointing here, because I think Lady Kiko, in her line of duty, is very good at reading people. And I think she can see right through Mariko in terms of what's happening here. Like she knows that there's some level of interest to Blackthorn, and she said like, you two are always together. Cool. She invites her through. They can't really navigate. They can't really agree on the price. She talks about Lady Kiko talks about what she does there at Willow World, and I mean, she sells the complete fantasy here, and experience. And I think when she's saying all of this, it is kind of making Mariko kind of uncomfortable, or I don't know. What did you make of this?
Oh, all right. A lot to say. So first, I was gonna say, I feel like this is kind of like a test from Toranaga. I feel like it's a little bit like, excuse my language, but fucked up. That I feel like he senses they have something. And John keeps bothering him. John's like, I want to go back. I want to leave Japan. I want my ship. And that. Yeah, he keeps asking him. And he's like, I believe the Portuguese are only in it for profit. And he keeps repeating that same narrative. And I think Toranaga's like, I need to shut this man up. I need to get him laid. I need to get him out of my way. But I also need to make sure Mariko stays on track and doesn't lose her focus on why she's here. So it's kind of like a cruel punishment. Oh, yeah.
And real quick, just to add in there, because you're forgetting about the whole scene I forgot about. I mean, you're tapping on the whole scene I forgot about. And I think he also picks up on that, like, there's words that's not being translated here.
Yeah.
What the hell are y'all talking about? But go ahead.
Yeah, so I feel like that's kind of like a punishment where she has to translate. So he's basically like, he's going to bang another woman in front of you. It's like, this is kind of dark. But back to that scene, I thought it was kind of like a beautiful scene. I feel like different shows kind of show brothels in like very different lights. This was a really, really interesting take. It wasn't just like people like smashing everywhere. She kind of like was telling like a beautiful story about like it being an escape, but not in even like a sexual way, more in like a, I guess, like trying to find a way to word it, but it wasn't sexualized, the scene. It was done beautifully. It was kind of like this is a place where they can be their true selves in a sense. Like it wasn't a duty to be here. Like it was a duty, but you get what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like she has to be this person. She can be who she truly is here.
Yeah, there's a level of intimacy here that we don't always see portrayed on television. It wasn't just about sex or nudity, which they have no problem showing in this show, but this was a very mental stimulating scene that one, I'm gonna just go off the limb and say like this is one everybody should experience in their life, to be mentally stimulated in a way. I'm not talking about a brothel, but just with anybody where somebody's like taps into your, I don't know if we're at the scene yet, but I give it right back to you to express. But like we have a scene where she is discussing about everything that she's been through and how she can work through the healing with it. So this is like one of those type of things where like the fact that her words were able to like penetrate her soul because of everything she had been through, the trauma, the scars, and the fact that she's saying these things. I mean, even how she positions herself behind her and talking through her, like her rear, and it's like creating these images. And it's interesting because she's working through Mariko to get through Blackthorn. Blackthorn is getting sexually charged and aroused for Mariko, and Mariko minds goes back to the healing of her trauma. I don't know about you, but this got to be one of those most powerful scenes I've seen on any show like this.
I felt like
the context of like this.
Like I wanted to cry for Mariko because it felt like, I don't know, it feels like, I don't know, like loving someone that it can't be reciprocated. So like I felt like as she's translating, like she's like speaking for this other woman, but I feel like she's essentially like saying how she feels. Yeah. And I don't know, I just thought that was a really powerful scene.
Yeah. But yeah, even to go back, I tell you what was funny is that Fuji is sipping her tea because she's definitely being able to weave through some of the passive aggressive messages coming through Lady Kiko and Mariko in that earlier scene. Because as she said, like, you two are never seen apart. And Fuji's looking like, I thought it was interesting too that Fuji didn't have much dialogue or anything to say, but said so much by just being able to sip her teeth there. But Kiko goes back to Omi. You know, we already know there's a relationship there, but Kiko has aspirations in being one of the most cherished courtesans in Kanto, and once again, still questioning why everyone values Blackthorn so much. So Blackthorn and Mariko dated to T-World. She says, "Be careful. Every gesture is observed." This is so awkward, but at the same time, she continues to teach her about etiquette and so on, and all of that good stuff. And as we talked about, how stimulating this scene was, and I think that this level of stimulation is what I think is like true intimacy. And I think at this rate now, that Kiko sells a really good product. So the next day, because if the awkward wasn't awkward enough, is it safe to say John had his walk of shame as he enters back to town and everybody's just watching there? But watching. It is interesting.
Like Kiku's man is like in the corner.
Mm-hmm. And you notice that his whole, she did tell him that like, he does nothing for her. So, he didn't have to worry about that. And Omi seemed to be kind of okay with this. And I think to confirm it, Omi and Nagakoto, they talking about like, so he doesn't look pleased with his gifts. I don't know if this is a milder shade or if this is, I don't know what they're thinking, but either way, they're definitely observative about John's reaction to coming back. And he gives Lady Kiko thanks by translation of Mariko. And Toranaga Mariko, this is the whole thing we talked about earlier. Mariko giving the update that Blackthorn was pleased, talks about her childhood, but also talks about, the relationship, what was the relationship between her and Ochiba, as we talked about earlier with the relationship with her and her father, and how she feels she failed them, but telling Mariko that war isn't over. Is there anything else you want to add to that scene with them two?
Yeah, I think that was it. He asked Mariko about it, and she was like, she was worried then. So she's basically like, I don't know, Lady Ochiba.
Yeah. And with that being said, we go back to Osaka, and everyone's voting. Everybody's voting for Lord Ito, but Shugiyama, because Shugiyama says there's no evidence that there's a plot against the heir. So until the hostages are released, I'm not voting. And you dishonor the wishes of the great Taiko. And with that being said, so he's like, no, and he's up and leaving. And it's interesting because now we got Ashido's like, all right, well, now he needs to be impeached. And Lady Ochiba's like, okay, so when is all this happening and whatnot? But with this happening, though, she now gives the answer about why she doesn't like Toranaga, because she talked about when she watched him as a child. Long story short is that she knows Toranaga was the one who didn't kill her father, but damn sure put the plan together. And I think Oshido is like, well, tell everybody in public. This would easily get people to turn side. But as she says, that's not going to work. That's not going to stop him. That's not going to be the way of how it's done. But I think Ochiba's plan is still yet to be ultimately revealed, but it was interesting where it felt like something that could be very beneficial to them wasn't something that she was willing to use here. Do you think she's telling the truth?
That's the thing. I don't really know how I feel about her yet. She seems kind of manipulative. I don't know. I feel like she's just trying to like run things her way. But back to when they were saying that they should have used Toranaga as an ally, she refused. I feel like she's trying to get, I don't know if it's like a sexual thing, but I feel like she has some kind of power over Ishido. Like I feel like I don't know if like trust her, but I feel like she kind of manipulates maybe his support of her. Because I don't know, something is off about that to me. Like she just seems like she is abusing her power. And then the fact that they're hiring an actor just made like no sense to me. Like that was like so out of the blue. And the guy just clearly seems like a dedicated actor and like a fan.
Yeah.
He just seems like he has no place being in this like type of, I don't know, like ruling system. So it just seems like she's just like in it for herself.
Yeah, so it's easily he's a pawn here.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like we talked about, like, her talking about what she went through to give the Taiko the son when no one else can do it. So again, maybe this is liberating to her. So maybe she's looking to take another approach instead of just being a woman to be utilized in terms of somebody else's plan. Maybe she is truly trying to take control of everything here. So I don't know. And again, hearing about her being drugged and so on is just, With that being said, though, Sugiyama is like, everybody, time to go. We already know trouble's here. And while he wakes everybody up, there's a little standoff here with some bandits in Oshido. And we already knew what was going to happen here because him and everybody that tried to leave with him was killed. So.
And they always blame bandits.
always. So now we go back, and Toranaga is aware that Ashido will now soon control the council because Sugiyama was killed. And with everything that's being said, he says that we got to defend the heir to the throne no matter what. Crimson Sky, it will be. He said, send a message to my brother asking for support, and this is the plan now. We're gonna run Crimson Sky. Yeah, we're gonna run Osaka. And it's going down, and everybody and all his soldiers, what is left of them, is all in agreement. So that covers the episode. I don't know if let's cover. Is there anything else that you want to elaborate further on, or anything that we might have missed? I feel like I know I missed some stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I was saying, I feel like this episode, even though there was no action, a lot kind of happened to like wrap your head around. I feel like the next few, because what are we on? The next is 7.
Yeah.
So I feel like the next few things are really going to start getting into play. I just feel like this one was a lot of setup. Like I said, my only complaint was essentially like sometimes the jumps were a little confusing, but nothing like too crazy. And I absolutely love that we got to see a lot more of all these characters in their past. So I think it's all going to play a part, and Lady Ochiba may be way bigger than we even expected.
Yeah, I think for me, like, understanding that Lady Ochiba is kind of coming off as a villain. Mariko, with the look at the end, looking like Crimson Skies and something she's totally on board for. But the two of them have passed, and I'm waiting to see what happens when those two interact. Both of them address their trauma of the past in both of this episode. What does healing look like for the two of them? Again, this wasn't a big episode about Blackthorn. He was just kind of there, but we did tap into Mariko's feelings. Lady Kiko is really as exercising how good of a person she is with what she does, and then her being able to read people. Omni and Nagakoto basically just on the sideline, still very much observing why, trying to figure out why Toranaga is just so pro Blackthorn, and I think its value is to come at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we have somebody else killed in the council, what are they going to do now? So, at this rate now, I think it's safe to say that there's not going to be a vote.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a process of elimination. Whoever steps out of the line will be killed, and we're going to see who flips sides once more are to hear about this. What would this do for folks, So, yeah. Very, very solid episode to really push the story forward. Can't wait to see what happens episode 7. Let us know if we forgot anything in this episode. I don't think I did the best job in getting all the stuff labeled down for this one, but it's okay. We're not perfect. We do what we can. We do our best. Yeah. But
it was
we'll
a
definitely
very
be back.
particular episode.
It was, and I agree. There was a lot of scenes that were just really heavy. I mean, you talk about the earlier scene where Toranaga and everybody, and they're trying to figure out a plan here, and everybody's just laying down the situation at hand. Who's on whose side, how they're going to attack, the loss of folks, how they're going to rebuild their home. It's a lot. So we'll see. But yeah, back for episode 7 next week. Jump in the comments, let us know your thoughts about tonight's episode 6. We'll see you back in just 1 week with more Shogun. Thank you for watching, folks.